Hello YouTube. Just wanted to show you the progress on the Sunbird 1.6 meter glider that had a wing break in half while flying the other day. Obviously that's been corrected. The wing's fixed. The subsequent nose damage and horizontal stabilizer damage has been corrected. I also made some extra trimming here for more rudder throw. Elevator throw has been changed a little bit. Ailerons were rebuilt. Linkages, a little extra movement, and lighter and more sturdy mechanisms. And then there's this little minor project back here too. Flaps. And I couldn't resist doing something more complicated. If you want crow, you can have crow too. So basically I've got it set up so that this switch turns crow on and off. Has a functional capability. And so we want to come in for landing, we can cut on flaps. Still have flaperons. Still have stabilization. And then basically we can go to a low level crow with flap deployment, and then a high level crow with flap deployment, and you can shut crow off right away. Usually what I'll do is I'll come in, approach my landing with a takeoff flaps on, and then basically I'll get up close to my landing zone, and then I'll cut on crow, and then I'll go full bore, and then I'll toggle between high and low, and then when I get close I'll shut off crow, and then I'll bring it into touchdown and usually cut off these. One other added feature I did on this, because I did a split flap mechanism, they are allowed to move out of the way on this side. This side's got a little bit more strong, a little more strength to it, and then as the servo collapses, it collapses all the way down to a right angle, which helps to keep from buzzing constantly, which is annoying, and also wears out the motors and the control systems inside those servos. It's a Metal Gear 9-gram Turnigy. So there's your crow. Oh, and then with crow, I wanted to show you one other setting I set up. Okay, so with flaps deployed, here's rudder. Nothing changes. Nothing changes with crow or flaps. But then if you're using ailerons, as you lose your aileron authority with the flaperon configuration, then we end up with additional rudder. And if you have crow on, which should be with this switch also engaged, we have the same scenario. So you can see as the stick's held all the way over for ailerons, you're going to get your roll out of the rudder tie. Now I'm just thinking outside, just thinking to myself here, if we had a rudder tie, that would be the rudder tie. Okay, very good. Sometimes it's good to visualize those changes and just make sure they still make sense. So as you can see, it turned out nicely. We'll see how it flies. I think it's going to fly awesome. And anytime I can get away with doing a complicated flap system, I pretty much can't resist. The other thing too that's nice about having this 9-gram servo over here is that we had our repairs over here, which were heavy and commensurate to this. So now if I sit and look to balance this left and right, it's pretty well close to balanced. I can't say it's exactly perfect, but it's pretty darn close. And pretty darn close is good enough on this application. I can trim it after all. So anyway guys, I wanted to show you that. I didn't bore you with the whole video of the build. But real quick rundown on the setup. So basically we've got everything else set up that we had before. Flap system is set to just -5 and -5 regardless of position, with the elevator correction set to +5 and +10, which is actually pushing the nose down. In this case, we have it set to a 1-second delay, and basically that's activated by the switch. The crow is tied into A. So with mixing, the way I do all this is I have on the rudder to aileron mix, I only have those active on the flap modes, and it's at 50% by default. And then when I go up to the next stage, which would be on the top level, we do another 25%. So basically, some more, okay? That's the way that works. And then we tie flaps at a rate of 100 up and down all the time, and that's to neutralize the position of the flaps. This is irregardless of if we're using crow, okay? The offset of -100 takes it from here, neutrally, the middle of the stroke, down to the bottom. And then I go a little bit further by exacerbating the throw on that servo. As you can see, auxiliary 2 is where we have that set up, and it's 150% here. Whoops. So now it's in the top setting. But when it's at -150, it's allowed to throw further into the frame of the vehicle there. And so the other mix we do is when the flaps are tied to auxiliary 2, which is, this is auxiliary 2, because we have flaperon configuration. That's the wing type, is flaperon. And then this just becomes another channel that gets tied in with it. And of course it's mechanically tied together through this linkage. So we only need the one servo. We don't have to worry about servo reversers, and we also don't have to worry about the weight of a second servo. I've done that on a lot of gliders, like the Consendo. I did it on this, the MOA, Mini MOA by FMS, 1.5 meter. Really cool glider. And anyway, so we tie that in to handle our neutral setting for flaps. And then for the other settings, we have flap to auxiliary 2, we have a -40, which gives us our offset here. But we still have our offset of 100. This just brings it down. So like our takeoff flaps. And then nothing here, right? So now then, the top two settings, we have one more flap setting. So see how this is flap setting 1? This is flap setting nothing, okay? And then when I have it off, then it goes to the neutral set, okay? So when we turn on A, then that makes crow happen. So what we did is we took A and we tied it to the flap, not the auxiliary 2. It's actually the flaperons. The flaperons are the ailerons. Okay, and that incidentally doesn't compromise any of our stabilization on the aileron channel, because we have flaperons activated on the Lemon RX7 channel with stabilization, which is just a dip switch setting. Okay, so we do that for one setting, and then for the higher setting, you'll notice this is not dark, so that means only in the middle setting of our flaps do we have that extra mode, which brings the crow in. When we go to the higher setting, we basically just tie in more, and but we only do it in the top setting of the flap mode. So in the middle setting, we go less. In the off setting, we go neutral. So no flaps, takeoff and landing, crow, takeoff and landing. So incidentally, it happens to operate exactly the same as the MOA, which I've been really happy with, and I really like it. Oh, another plane that I did a single flap servo was on this. This is the ST model, ASW28. Really turned out to be a good model once you put about 6 pieces of tape over the wing to make it strong. So anyway, guys, this thing should be ready to rock and roll. Should still have unlimited vertical. Should still be a great flying plane. Checking the CG real quick just to see if we've impacted that adversely. It's still a little on the nose heavy side, which is good for wind penetration, so you can see where the CG ends up being. It's I'm going to call it a 1/6 of the way from the leading edge, so it's probably a little on the nose heavy side, which is fine. Like I said, if I'm going to slope sword this thing, and I'm not planning on using the throttle, then that should be no problem. The only thing we haven't done yet, we made a huge mess tonight, is we haven't put on these FMS propellers. And I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to end up doing that or not, but I am thinking about it. But that's about it, guys. I just wanted you to get a quick look at that. I know you've been following through this project, and I appreciate you watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. There'll be more coming with this. And also, I guess I never really told you what this material was. This is a balsa wood piece, and then what I did is I took toothpicks for strength and glued them on either end, and I used CA and coated the whole thing, and then on the back side I did a little bit thicker ribbing with CA. And these things weigh about I think they're like 5 grams, 5.5 grams each, so very light. We added about 10 grams here. We probably added, I would say, 15 grams of peripheral weight in other devices and equipment. And then we added, of course, the 9-gram servo, which is about 13 grams because it's a Metal Gear 9-gram servo. So let's call it, 30 grams. So it's not an overly huge amount of weight investment. And then the hinge is just a high-quality tape. High-quality tape from Staples. Nothing special, but it is actually really good tape. It's super sticky, and it doesn't seem to do bad with UV. If you get tape that's really crappy, the UV rays just destroy it really quick. And then this is where we did our repair on the wing, and this is where I cut to get in my servo. So anyway, guys, one last awesome look at the flaps here. And here you'll also notice I did that neat detail. The only reason I did that is just to make it look cool, and I had extra material there. Whoops. So we'll see how it works. And the only thing I'm not real thrilled about right now is that I didn't put any magnets in just because I didn't want to have to overwhelm the magnetic pressure, similar to what I did on the Arcus, or excuse me, not the Arcus. I've got magnets that pull down the spoilers on this, and they're very strong. So, and they're noisy too. When you deploy the flaps, the spoiler-ons in this case, you hear them break free. So I didn't want to have that problem on this plane. So that's why we went with what we did. So one last look. Don't forget to like and subscribe, guys. Thanks a lot for watching.